If you talk about the greatest literary geniuses, there's one name which echoes again and again. Fyodor Dostoevsky, who is a Russian writer or philosopher, most people know for his work being about the side of humans. And world people don't want to talk about cause. They can't handle them. But why are his creations like this? And most importantly, what's going on in his own mind when he writes them? In this video, we're discussing about his life, his career, his philosophy, and my own views on them. In the beginning, Dostoevsky was a normal child born to a surgeon. Due to his father's job, Fydor was always around people whose lives were filled with illness, death, pestilence, and suffering. Due to this early exposure to the suffering of humanity, his mind already had been familiar with the universe's cruelty. Then he made a female friend, and they got closer as children. They were only kids at that time, so it wasn't anything romantic, but a friend is still a friend. After all that exposure to tragedies of life, he witnessed another one. His female friend was named and killed by a man. Dostoevsky was in shock, and after all that he had the confirmation that universe and life aren't fair or filled with joy, but instead suffering and injustice. He was just 9 years old when that had happened. Just imagine what scar could a tragedy like that leave on a 9-year-old child. He has written, "To take away someone's life is a sin, but to take away someone's idea of a happy life is a bigger sin," while addressing this tragedy. Even after that life couldn't stop scarring him, his mother, whom he loved very much, died to tuberculosis when he was just 15. He still had hope in his life, but he only got disappointment as his father, who had some peasants working for him, was murdered by those same peasants. And once he heard about the news, he had his first seizure, and he kept on having seizures for the rest of his life. Once he reached the adult life, he wrote a piece of literature about people living in poverty and their sufferings, which he was well aware of by being surrounded by people like them. The book became a success, and it looked like a promising start, which turned out to be a deception by the world. His next couple of books had flopped, until he finally wrote that one book. Crime and Punishment. Crime and Punishment is the most famous creation of Fyodor Dostoevsky, and many people know him for this specific book. But what's it about? The answer can be given with a quote from the book itself. "Your worst sin is that you have betrayed and destroyed yourself for nothing." The book follows a young 23-year-old man who's an ex-law student who views humanity as something divided into two types of people. One who are ordinary, aka people who live by all kinds of rules of society, and extraordinary people who don't look at society's rules the same way. Just to prove his point, he kills a man to see if he is extraordinary, but he also has to kill a woman in the process, and he is eaten by guilt. The story shows us the price of being quote-unquote superior when it comes to thinking, and shows us even the danger of philosophy itself and how it can eat you from the inside. Doesn't matter if you think your idea is right or wrong, because you'd have to change yourself completely and be fine with accepting the philosophy you try to protect. It talks about true meaning of freedom, which according to Dostoevsky isn't doing whatever you want to by accepting responsibility, even though you can do anything. That's the difference between freedom and will. The book's core idea is that human conscience is a terrible tragedy, but it still has meaning, and the meaning is the suffering, as it's the only thing common to every being, and that ideas are great, but only if they don't cause harm to another human. Core philosophy. Dostoevsky's worldview had various aspects for the various aspects of the world, such as his outlook at freedom was that freedom is a great idea of human life, but at the same time, it's terrifying if someone gains freedom without the responsibilities that come with it. His view on ideology was similar. He believed ideologies were essential for people, but shared ideologies don't always go well, nor toxic followers of ideologies, as it's shown in his book, that to prove one's ideology, man would go as far as possible if the ideology means everything to him. He had faith in religion, but instead of following it blindly, he always had his doubts about it. His life had been suffering after suffering, so his philosophy towards it was that suffering is the meaning, and it creates man what he is. And that seems true because if Dostoevsky's life had gone different, he wouldn't be what we know him to be. He accepted that human by nature is hypocrite, filled with uncertainty, irrational and contradictory, and tried to see beauty in it as humans are made. He believed that rational reason can't solve humans, as humans are irrational creatures and not a system. He saw reason as an excuse people make to make sense of their lives, and he instead proposed an idea of the human reason given by people to be replaced with human heart's lead. Before him, Chernyshevsky argued that humans were complete rational beings, which just need right information and system to do any task in life and solve any problem, to which Dostoevsky's philosophy said, "You got it all wrong. Humans don't simply work like that. If someone does, then they're trying to deceive themselves." According to Dostoevsky, the reason doesn't explain key parts of human life, such as love, suffering, forgiveness, faith, and many more. Something like love isn't a part of a calculated system. It's something a person gives to another. It's a feeling which comes suddenly. Rationality doesn't go quiet well with forgiveness, as according to the system, it shouldn't exist, but it does, and that proves Dostoevsky's point. Arguments of the century. There were philosophers who naturally came and challenged Dostoevsky's ideas, such as Georg Hegel, who argued that what Dostoevsky calls irrational aspects of life are just a tiny segment of the greater rational process. Even Karl Marx had argued a different reason to humanity's irrationality, as he believed that people are irrational because of the system focuses on its economic structure, and that irrationality wasn't something people are pre-built with. Dostoevsky challenged this thinking in one of his books, where he stated that the so-called revolutionary rationalists are nothing but empty souls who only push their ideology and ignore that rational outcome of their ideology ends in blood. Dostoevsky believed that irrationality, chaos, and evil is in the depths of human heart and soul, and it's not a byproduct of a corrupt system. Not everyone was against his ideas, as Søren Kierkegaard, Blaise Pascal, and many more supported Dostoevsky's idea of human being. And naturally, there were philosophers who came after these debates and had something of their own to add. The world-famous philosopher Nietzsche said that Fyodor Dostoevsky was the only psychologist from whom I have anything to learn. But he also said that his conclusion to managing the insufficient rationalist morality isn't completely perfect, as Nietzsche's conclusion was beyond conventional morality completely. After Nietzsche, there was Sigmund Freud, who just straight up confirmed Dostoevsky's beliefs scientifically, as he managed to scientifically confirm that human mind is driven by irrational forces such as id, which Dostoevsky said instinct in his words, in superego, aka conscience/guilt, according to Dostoevsky. Sigmund confirmed Dostoevsky was right about irrationality of human mind, but he suggested that it can be overcome by therapy. The next one was my personal favorite, Albert Camus, who agreed with Dostoevsky on reason not being enough to give life a true meaning, as he believed that life, universe, existence itself is absurd. But that's where the similarities end, as according to Camus, what Dostoevsky's have faith in Christ was a philosophical suicide, as it eliminates questions. My views: if you ask me about Dostoevsky, I'll say that his beliefs were mixed with some rights and some wrongs. In my personal opinion, humans being irrational makes perfect sense, and more sense than what rationalists say about humans. But just like Camus, I believe turning to religion is an easy solution to the biggest debate. And in reality, it's not even a solution, but a way to give yourself a fake answer and pat your back for coming to the conclusion. I'll also say that his view on ideologies was right about some people going to extreme extents and crossing the line if it means they can prove their way to be the correct way. But I also think that ideologies are obviously important for a person to have, as it builds his persona up. It just shouldn't be the entire persona. I agree that freedom should automatically have responsibilities with it, but not restrictions, as it beats the point of freedom itself. And that was what the man named Fyodor Dostoevsky, aka the madman of Russian literature, is. Bye.